because it returns back all the harmful radiation that is coming to the earth to destroy the earth. In the heaven, just so many things going on in the heaven. And so at the space of ozonosphere is specialized on returning all, like a recycle. It recycles all the harmful materials that is coming from the heaven to the earth. That is the job of the ozonosphere. And thermosphere is specialized on acoustic. If you make sound, it comes back to you acoustic. On this level of atmosphere is where most of the telescope, most of the machines that scientists send in place, making it easy for telephone communication, for broadcasting, for television, on the level of thermosphere. Because this atmosphere specializes on acoustic. You make a noise, it comes back to you. So in the Quran, God will say, هو الذي خلق السماوات فقضاهن سبع السماوات في يومين وأوحى في كل سماء أمرها. He is the one that created the heaven in 2 days, and then he assigned to each and every heaven its duty. هو الذي خلق السماوات. He created the heavens, and then he acquired, or he gave each and every heaven its duty. And today we thank God that the progress of science is proving that indeed this book can never be revealed by a human being, not Muhammad, not anybody around his time, but it has to be a revelation. Otherwise, how can a human being know from his head, from his own self in the 14th century that this is the case? So we know this is a miracle of the Quran. There is a professor in University of Kentucky. His name is Professor Johnson. This man specialized on marine technology. As a matter of fact, he was one of the national advisors for President Jimmy Carter on marine expedition. Professor Johnson. He wrote a book. The name of the book is The Mystery of the Deep. The Mystery of the Deep. And in this book, he was the first human being to explain and tell the whole wide world that, if you go to the seashore, you surf with this, surfing, you surf on the sea. That was the wave, on the wave. He said there is a wave which physical eye cannot see, much, much bigger than the first one that we see when we go to the seashore. This is more than 1,000 feet below the sea. How do you see all these things? He said, you can't see all these things with your naked eye. You need submarine technology, special equipment, whereby you could analyze and study the salinity, the density, the progression, the wave, the interface, how the behavior of the water. You need all this sensor to be able to see that actually there is a huge wave going on in the depth of the ocean, but I cannot see. He said the first one we cannot see. The second one is what we see when we go to the ocean. The mauj, the wave. He said the huge one is under the depth of the ocean. Sometimes when it becomes so huge, it causes catastrophe, tsunami, and then this causes Hurricane Gloria, Hurricane, you name them, all these hurricanes that have names. As a result of the movement of the plate tectonic under the surface of the sea, in connection with the first layer of the wave under the depth of the ocean. We understand that. So today, we know that we have two types of waves in the depth of the ocean. But the first one we cannot see. The second one, yes, we can see if we go to the ocean. So the Quran also mentioned this anomaly some 1,424 years ago. But the way God Almighty described this sea, the wave in the sea, is so mystical. He said in the Quran, chapter 24, verse 10, this is what it said. God Almighty is describing the state of the unbelievers. He said, أَوْ كَالظُّلُمَاتُ فِي بَحَرٍ لُجِيٍّ يَكْشَاءُ مَوْجٌ من فوقه موج من فوقه سحاب ظلمات بعضها فوق بعض إذا أخرج يده لم يكد يراها. He said, the state or the skin or the life of the unbeliever is so dark like the depth of the ocean, where there is a wave on top of it, another wave on top of it, the sky. In other words, the Quran mentioned two types of waves. Mawjun min fawqihi mawjun min fawqihi sahabun zulumatun ba'duha fawqa ba'dun iza akhraj yadahu lam yakad yaraha. If you put your hand in this ocean, you can't even see your hand, because if you go more than 200 feet without any submarine technology, without any aid, you are doomed. And if you have the biggest light that you can imagine, more than 400 feet in the depth of the ocean, there is no light at all, because the spectrum light vanishes. The red section goes into, sickness, because the darkness is too huge. But thank God Almighty, the United States, Marines have developed special kind of sensor to create a light that is helping us today to go into the depth of the ocean, to study, the bed, the seabed and everything. We thank God Almighty for all this technology. But basically, if you go there more than 100 feet unaided, you will be doomed. And it's so dark. This light is beyond darkness. This kind of light, if it goes down more than 100 feet, what are you going to see? Nothing. So God will say in the Quran, Mawjun min fawqihi mawjun. The unbeliever's state of mind is so dark like the depth of the ocean, where there is a wave on top of it, another wave on top of it, the sky. So God Almighty says, Zulumatun ba'duha fawqa ba'alun. This is darkness upon darkness, and that is true. The only place on the face of in this whole earth where you will find darkness on top of darkness is the depth of the ocean. So dark beyond your reasoning, beyond your thinking. So dark. Zulumatun ba'aduha fawqa ba'adun. The Quran describes zulumatun, darkness upon darkness, where if you stretch your hand, you can't even see your hand close. And the body of Pharaoh, you see, the body of Pharaoh was discovered in the year 1898 by a scientist called Professor Laureate. What happened was this. This scientist, Professor Laureate, he is a specialized on the mummified bodies of the pharaohs, the ancient pharaohs that died. He is a specialist on how they die, what happened to them, how rich they are, which dynasty did they live, and on and on and on. So in 1898, he was in Egypt, in a town called Thebes, the Valley of the Kings. So he went there, and through excavation, they were able to bring a particular pharaoh. So now they want to know, what kind of pharaoh is this? Because it has so many richness, gold and beyond reasons. Like, wow, this pharaoh is very, very important. So they want to know, which pharaoh is this? How do they know all these things? Through potassium tests. They have to test, carbon dating with potassium tests. Otherwise, how are they going to know? So they carbon date this pharaoh with potassium test. How do they do that? They have to cut the tissue, a small tissue of this dead pharaoh. Scientifically do whatever they want to do, and then it can tell them exactly when did this pharaoh die, what causes the death of this pharaoh, and how old was this pharaoh. So Professor Laureate take upon himself to do all these tasks. And finally, when they analyze this pharaoh, it tells them that this pharaoh died as a result of being submerged in the water. And then when they do the research again further, it tells them that this pharaoh died some 4,000 years ago. So they search history 4,000 years ago. It fell precisely at the time of Moses. So the archaeologists scored a big one. It became news. Wow, finally we've got the pharaoh of Moses. They call him Maneptah or Ramses II. Today it's lying in states. The Jewish in diaspora all over the world goes there to see the pharaoh of Moses. This is the Pharaoh of Moses. This is the Pharaoh that gave us endless trouble. This is the Pharaoh that's been mentioned over and over and over in the Bible, in the